Welcome back to Mishler Math, and let's talk about standard form. Standard form. And let's make this a little less bold maybe. Alright, standard form of an equation is ax plus by equals c. Now, a, b, and c are integers, okay? And don't worry about that. That just means a, b, and c can't be a fraction or a decimal, okay? So a, b, and c are integers. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples, something that's in standard form, okay? And maybe I'll give you some non-examples too. So example and non. Oh, no. Let's make use of these fancy colors we have on this thing here, and let's make that non-example. Okay. So, an example of a equation in standard form, 3x plus 7y equals 15. There's an example of an equation in standard form. Okay? Equation in standard form would be negative 5x, because remember, an integer can be positive or negative. It just can't be a decimal or a percent or a fraction. So negative 5x minus 2y equals 17. That's an equation written in standard form. Okay? 2x minus 11y equals 44. That's an equation. These are all equations written in standard form. So let's switch over here to pink and look at some non-examples. Okay, y equals 4x minus 11. Now you know that's not written in standard form because that's written in slope-intercept form. Okay, there's another one. What about this one? 0.7x minus 0.5y equals 0.9. That's not in standard form because these are decimals here, okay? So we can't have decimal coefficients and it still be in standard form. Another one that's not in standard form is 7x equals negative 15y plus 11. Now the thing is with this one is I can make this in standard form very, very easily. Watch. I add 15y to both sides, and voila, I can switch colors because now I've got 7x plus 15y. These two cancel, equals 11. So this is not in standard form. 7x equals negative 15y plus 11. This is in standard form. 7x plus 15y equals 11. You notice that this is in the same form as all these on the left. So these are not in standard form, but each one of these can be converted to standard form. Remember, there are many forms. There are actually an infinite number of forms of the same equation. For example, this one here, this equation and this equation, okay, those two, if I graph those two, they're going to have the same line. So let's get rid of this stuff here, and you know what standard form is now. So I'm going to get rid of that. And now let's talk about graphing an equation in standard form. Okay? And it's kind of a neat little trick here. 5x plus 3y equals 15. Let's take a look at that. 5x plus 3y equals 15. Well, now remember when we talked about slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Do you remember, and I'm just going to do a quick reminder of that, y equals mx plus b. Remember that if x is equal to 0, then y, it eliminates this because 0, it eliminates this middle term. So y equals b. That's why b is your slope-intercept. So if x is equal to 0, okay, then y is going to be whatever this b is, whatever's left, because it gets rid of that term right there. So it doesn't matter what m is. M can be 5 or 3 or 1/2 or anything. And you multiply it by 0, and that's wiped out. Anything times 0 gets rid of it. It's 0. So 0 plus b. Whatever b is, you're left with that in the equation when you substitute x equals 0. Well, the same thing happens with x or with y equals 0. So let me tell you what I'm talking about here, if that's a little confusing to you. Let's set y equal to 0. Well, that means in this equation, 5x plus 3 times 0 is going to be equal to 15, right? So remember I set y equal to 0. So if I'm looking for an ordered pair, y is going to equal 0. We just have to find out what x is. And this is going to be a point on this line. Okay, remember, this equation is going to turn into a line on the coordinate plane there. So 5x plus 3 times 0 is 15. So we get rid of that term, and we have 5x equals 15. Now if I solve this for x, I divide both sides by 5, and I end up with x equals 15 divided by 3, which is, or 15 divided by 5, which is x equals 3. And so let's take a look at what happens on the graph. So this is going to be 3. So x equals 3. On the x-axis, I go 1, 2, 3. On the y-axis, I'm at 0. Okay? In other words, it goes to 0 on the y-axis. Now let's take another look at another one here. We've got, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make x equal to 0. Okay? So 5 times 0 plus 3y is equal to 15. Okay? So of course 5 times 0 is 0, so that's done. So 3y equals 15. Divide by 3 on both sides, and I have y equal to 15 divided by 3, which is 5. So x equals 0 goes with y equals 5. So my ordered pair is 0, 5. And what I'm doing here now, watch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the y-axis, you see? 0 is the x-coordinate, 5 is the y-coordinate. So what do you see? What I'm doing here is I'm using the intercepts. I'm putting this in standard form, or I've got it in standard form. I'm using the intercepts to graph this equation because I've got 2 points now, and now I know where the line is going to go. And all I had to do was substitute y equals 0 and find out what x is equal to, and then substitute x equals 0 and find out what y, if x is equal to 0, what's y equal to. You see these two here? Okay? These two are my intercepts. This is my y-intercept, or x-intercept rather. This is my y-intercept. My y-intercept is a value for y when x equals 0. My x-intercept is a value for x when y equals 0. How do I find that out? I plug either one of them into the equation. So when I do this, I can graph this equation now. And let's make it a nice pretty red line. And draw it through there. And then do the same thing in the opposite direction. Oops, I always forget to push the button first. There we go. And right through there like that. And a little tiny wiggle is all you need to make this not perfect. And I'm such a perfectionist about drawing these lines, and even the little arrows, that's not a perfect arrow. Anyway, you get the idea. That's the line. 3, 0, right there. 3, 0. 0, 5, right there. 0, 5. And this is my y-intercept. And this is my x-intercept. Now, usually we haven't talked about x-intercept much until now because we haven't needed to. A couple other things I wanted to show you here, and that is, I'm going to erase this here and clear this out. And what about, suppose there's no y-intercept. And you say, what do you mean? How would you have something like that? Well, it's pretty simple. X equals 4. That's my equation. You say, well, you can't make a line out of that. There's no slope. There's no y. How do you make a line out of that? Well, no matter what y is equal to, x is going to equal 1, 2, 3, 4. And so basically I have a vertical line at x equals 4. Okay? It goes up and down right at x equals 4. Passes through the x-axis. My x-intercept is x equals 4. This is the line x equals 4, and that is a graph of this equation. Now, later on we start talking about functions. We're going to talk about, well, this is not a function, and I'll explain why it's not a function. But right now, that's the graph of the equation x equals 4. And we can do the same thing in the y-axis. This is, of course, this is a vertical line. And now, this is an interesting thing. I'm going to talk about what is the slope of this. Remember, slope is a change in y over change in x. Okay? And so, what's the change in y? Well, if I go from here to here, the change in y is 2. If I go between these 2 points, the change in y is 2. Okay? The change in x is what? Did x change from here to here? No, x is going to be 4 no matter what. So the change in x is 0 because x didn't change. And now take a look at this. Is division by 0 possible? No. Division by 0 is not possible. Therefore, we call this slope undefined. The slope of any vertical line is undefined. And, don't say undefined means I can't figure it out. No. Undefined means there's no way to define the slope because division by 0 is undefined. So we can't have 0 in the bottom. So let's take a look at one more quick thing, and that is y equals -4. And we're going to have the same situation. I'll try to make it quick here. Draw a straight horizontal line. And we just talked about that in geometry. It's really hard not to draw, or really hard to draw a line that's not straight, because if it's not straight, it's not a line. Anyway, this is the graph of y equals -4. And what is the slope? This is, of course, a horizontal line. So what's the slope of that horizontal line? Well, change in y over change in x. Let's take 2 points. Okay, from here to here, from between these 2 points. Now, my change in y is 0, and the change in x is 2. What's 0 divided by 2? Don't say it's undefined, because it's not. The answer is 0, because 0 times 2 is equal to 0. So the slope is 0. So the slope of any horizontal line, the slope is 0. The slope of any vertical line is undefined. Okay? And just a couple things about slope and standard form and how to graph using intercepts. Thank you, and I'll talk to you later.